Hi, I'm Jerry Kita and welcome to the channel. Today I'd like to talk to you about a trip I made to the Faroe Islands about a year ago, and in particular I'm going to describe two of the most intimidating spots I ever went to take photographs. My name is Jerry Kita and I live in North Carolina. A few years ago, as I was approaching retirement, I purchased a camera with the idea of becoming a photographer. Since then, photography has taken me to some wonderful places all over the world, and I've made many new friends. I've come a long way, but I know I'm still trying to figure this all out. I'm having a lot of fun, and this is my journey. Again, welcome to the channel. The Faroe Islands are probably on the bucket list for a lot of photographers. I know it was certainly on the bucket list for me, and it was a place I had looked forward to going for a couple of years. It's a small set of islands. I think there's about 14 islands in total, and they're located in the North Sea between Iceland and the northern tip of Scotland. And photographers who go there usually go for one of two reasons. If you're a wildlife photographer, you'll love to see the puffins and the highland cattle. But I think for most photographers, what attracts them are the spectacular landscapes. The cliffs along the seashore, the sea stacks. It is just unlike anything you've seen anywhere else in the world. They are simply spectacular. What I'm going to talk about are two of the locations that I visited, which, as I said earlier, are two of the most intimidating places I've ever gone to take photographs. So let's look at these two pictures. The first one here, if you're familiar with the location, it's commonly referred to as the Hanging Lake. Within the Faroe Islands, it's known as Trellanapa, or the Slave Cliff. And legend has it that the Vikings would take disobedient slaves and throw them off this cliff. And keep in mind that cliff is about 466 feet high. In order to get to this location, you would start here. You'd have to hike to it. There's no other way to get to it. You'd start at this little village here, and you walk, if you're following the cursor, kind of walk along this path, kind of alongside the lake, and you will then make a circular route that'll eventually take you to this location. Now, the reason it's called the Hanging Lake, and it's probably apparent from the photograph, is that it gives you the optical illusion that the lake here is actually basically hanging in the air just over the ocean. What's happening in reality, it's a bit of an optical illusion. If you look at this point of the cliff, and if you were to draw a straight line from here down to the lake, it would probably cover a distance of about 2 football fields. But because the cliff kind of slopes down towards the lake, it gives you this really curious optical illusion that the lake is right on the cliff. It's not, it's some distance away. Now, what makes this both spectacular and also very intimidating, at least to me, is this little cliff that we are standing on. And if you want to get an idea of how high you are above the water, you are about as high off the water as you are if you're standing on this cliff. So that's about 466 feet. You're standing about 2 or 3 feet, 466 foot drop. And it's not particularly dangerous. What you're standing on is flat. You don't have to worry about it. But the fact 3-4 feet of the bottom of your tripod, you're on the edge of that cliff, it's something that makes you make sure of your footwork and that you're not being at all careless. The reason that photographers will choose this spot is you want to be able to get this part of the cliff within the frame, and it's nicely framed by this outcrop that you're standing on. It's a really cool shot. You've probably seen this shot all over the internet. If you're at all familiar with the Faroe Islands, you've seen it. There's a lot of cool things you can do when you're here. One of the things I tried to do was to take my drone up and to get high above it and to take some panos. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. If you notice up here at the top of the photo, the clouds were very, very low. And for a good part of the time that we were there, this lake was not even visible. So we did have to spend a fair bit of time here just waiting for the conditions to improve sufficiently that you could at least take this shot. But insofar as getting a drone out, the problem very quickly was that if you got any height at all on that drone, you were very quickly in the clouds. You really couldn't take any shot. And if I were to come back here, I would love to take this shot again, of course, under different conditions, but I'd also like to get maybe much more of the sky than I did. And I'd certainly love to take the drone out to get a shot. So that's the Hanging Lake, and whoops, let me put that back. So this is the Hanging Lake, again, one of the great spots to visit at the Faroe Islands. If you get a chance to come out here, I would encourage you to do it. As I said, it's quite intimidating, but it's certainly worth making the trek out here. Let's take a look at another area that we visited. And again, this is another one that you're probably very familiar with if you've seen photos of the Faroe Islands. This is called Drangarnir. And again, it's a very, very popular spot for photographers. It's interesting in the way you have to even get here. There's two options. One, you can hike. I've been told it's a fairly, maybe not difficult, but it's a hike that's going to take you a couple of hours to get out here. It's not flat. You're doing a lot of climbing to get here, but it's very doable. And I've been told you have some great opportunity for photographs along the way. What we opted to do is to take a boat to get here. And the boat takes about 10 minutes. So it's, for that reason alone, it's a great option. The issue here is that there is no dock. And the way you have to get off the boat is, the boats are specially made. They have, you disembark off the boat from the bow. And what the captain does is he rides that boat up onto the rocky shore, and you've got about 2 or 3 seconds to get off at the bow, because he can only hold it in that position so long because the waves are forcing him, kind of back away from the rocks. So one or maybe at most two of us can get off and on the boat at a time. It's kind of tricky, and you really, really have to be careful. And what the guides demand that you do is you hand them your backpack first, and then once that's safely ashore, then you can come on shore when the opportunity is there for you to disembark. And the reason for that is if you were ever to slip and find yourself in the water, the last thing you want is 25 pounds of camera equipment on your back. But once you get up here, you do climb up a bit of a hill, and it felt to me like it was almost at 45 degrees, and maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but it is a rather steep climb to get photography location. And it's well worth it. It really is. Now, that's not really the intimidating part of it. And the intimidating part of this experience for me was that there's another shot you can get where you go right down to the water. And I'm going to show you a video here of what that experience was like. And as you can see me behind the camera. You also see in the orange jacket, you see Thomas, who is one of our guides. And Thomas's job was to protect me. In the event of a rogue wave, if it happened to come up on that shelf, he would grab me and very quickly get me to safety. And the agreement, of course, was that if a rogue wave did come, you really were sacrificing your camera, because if you spent any time at all trying to get your camera gathered up and off that shelf, you were both gone out into the water. At that point, there was really not much anybody can do for you. So it was a little intimidating being out there. In fact, let me correct that. It was a lot intimidating. Usually as a landscape photographer, you tend to have a lot of time to get yourself set up, wait for the right light. Here you were under a bit of time pressure. And the intent here was to wait for the moment that the water would come up on the shelf, just enough to kind of create some interesting patterns that you would catch as the water is draining off the shelf. And as you can see, I do have a photo of it, and it is right here. And as you can see, what you were trying to get is the water to come up onto the shelf, and then get as many photos as you can of the water draining off the shelf. And it created this picture, and it is really, really neat. And I'm glad I was there. So with that, these are the kind of my two favorite locations in the Faroe Islands, both in their own way very intimidating, but at the same time, locations that I would happily go back to again. And if you get a chance, I would encourage you to do so also. And those are my favorite places in the Faroe Islands. And they bring back so many wonderful memories. But there's a whole lot of other places in the Faroes that are just as spectacular, if not more so. And I suspect it's a place that I'm going to have to return to at some point or another. Anyways, thank you once again for joining this channel and listening this far. And you have gotten this far, and if there's something you like, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Perhaps leave a comment. Love to get some insight from you. If you've got any questions, would be very happy to try to answer them as best I can. And also give some thought to subscribing. And until next time, we'll see you.